is Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
It's time for the biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport. Let's join the team for the biggest show in the world of sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.
It's a Throwback Thursday and this is ZiFM Sport, and on a Thursday we like to take you deep into the minds of some of our athletes, some people in the world of sport, administrators, you name it, we've got it right here on ZiFM Sport on a Thursday. Today we speak to someone who has 24 years of experience in the sporting industry. He's played the sport. He's been now in rehabilitation and sports performance. And you want to stay tuned to find out who that is. Don't forget, we like to keep it chatty here on ZiFM Sport. It's a two-way street. Don't forget our social media handles at ZiFM Sport on Facebook and Twitter. Also, if you do somehow manage to miss the show, you can always find these shows on YouTube at ZiFM Sport.
Hi, this is Alexandra Maseko, and I'm the national basketball team captain, and you're listening to ZiFM Sport.
So a lot of us have put on a little bit of weight during this COVID era. And if you'd like to find out how to lose that weight, if you want to hear from a professional, I've got him here for you, the absolute expert. His name is Mitchel. And no, he doesn't just teach people like you and me how to lose weight. He actually works with athletes in terms of sport rehabilitation, sport performance, wellness, and he's worked with teams and athletes in a variety of disciplines. That's rugby, track and field, swimming, polo, even the Dakar Rally. He worked with Graeme Sharp. Last week we spoke to Scott Vincent, and he works with Scott Vincent as well as the national women's field hockey team. He takes us through today his journey into sport and also how to stay in sport. We often see our athletes struggle a little bit with life after playing sport. He's got some advice for you if you are planning a career in sport. This is ZiFM Sport. So firstly, Grant, thank you so much for coming onto the show. I know you're probably extremely busy. Your roster of athletes is looking incredible at the moment. And also sport is making a resurgence in Zim, so I'm sure you're quite busy. So thank you so much for making the time.
Yeah, only a pleasure. It's always good to join the team and talk stories and let people know what's going on and how some of the athletes are doing, because, you know, even though there was a lockdown, they didn't stop training.
Oh yeah, definitely. So take us through to the very beginning of your journey. What was your childhood like, and did you play sport quite early on, or was it something you picked up later?
No, for sure. I mean, I've got an older brother. He's 3 years older than me, Ross, and he resides in the States. And obviously growing up on a farm, everything was outdoors and active. So, you know, and the folks always encouraged us to get out and do things and play and just go and explore, you know, the great countryside. And that's what we did. We lived a very active lifestyle, and whatever my brother decided we would do is what I had to do. It's just one of those unwritten rules of being a sibling. It's, you do this, okay. So there was a lot of garden cricket, a lot of garden tennis, a lot of swimming, a lot of riding the donkeys and, you know, out on the bicycles and the motorbikes and just living a very active lifestyle. So that kind of set the pace for everything. And then obviously at school, going to school, you get the opportunity to try out a lot of sports. So very grateful for those opportunities until such a time you find one or two that work for you and it's something that you want to pursue a little more in detail. And yeah, rugby was that sport later on in life.
So obviously you're playing rugby at school, and a lot of people will play schoolboy rugby, and after that it's not necessarily a career path for them. What made you decide to go into the world of sport and actually make a career out of it?
It's, you know, leaving school, I'd finished my A-levels and I just thought, that's it. Pens down, no more exams. My brain is fried. Let's put everything in file 13 for now. No university for me. So took the year off and kind of looked at it and went, well, how do I want to use this this gap year and with a mind on where I want to go and the whole sort of wellness sport performance industry. It was fledgling at the time, but there was a hint of excitement. So delved into that and took a year to decide that university is where I wanted to go and sharpen up on the skill and get the degree, etc. So that was 98, and then 99 I started university and came out there 4 years later with a degree in human kinetics and ergonomics and industrial psychology, and then straight into the sporting world from there. So it's been 24 years I think in the industry.
Wow, that's absolutely incredible. So we see some athletes, obviously they love sports, they play for a while, but that transition from being an athlete to the almost after career where they're now going into different areas of sport. For you, was that necessarily a transition you had to make, or was it more of it all worked together because of what you were studying at the time?
Yeah, it's always good you see a lot of professional athletes nowadays who fail because they don't have something to back them up. At any given stage, it could be your last match, it could be your last training session, it could be your last swing of the golf club, and an injury can set you back, and then you've got nothing to fall back on. I delved into the semi-pro side of sport and made a small career out of it, but rugby at the time in this country was not going to give you that opportunity. You had to go outside. So the degree was there to give me an opportunity to work, pay the bills, put some money in, be able to travel, and then play sport at the same time. So, it's imperative to those young athletes that, especially when they go to the States or they go outside, is get the academics done first and get it done well, and your sporting career will take care of itself if you put the hard work in.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that in 98, in terms of a career specifically in rugby, it wasn't going to do that for you. But now you're in rehabilitation, sports performance. Is that something we take seriously in Zimbabwe, or is it almost an afterthought and only some of the sporting codes actually take it seriously?
Yeah, we're a long way behind. And it's not, I think the issue is a mindset rather than the acquisition of the skill. It's the mindset of that athlete to say, if I have to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to the gym to work on myself and prepare myself physically so that I can then put a full day's worth of work in and then finish again in the afternoon and go back and do my second training session, well, then that's how it has to be done. I think a lot of local athletes are not prepared to make that level of sacrifice. And, the argument is often, well, I'm not a professional, I don't get paid to do that. But, there's so many global superstars around the world that were professional by attitude and commitment way before they ever earned their first paycheck. You just have to take your East African country, middle distance, long distance runners, the guys from Ethiopia and Kenya, Eliud Kipchoge, and that, they were running, 10, 15 kilometers just to get to school and work and back and forth, and then entering a few races here and there, winning a little bit, and then sponsors jumped on board, and all of a sudden they are these global superstars. And locally, athletes just need to understand how hard it is, and that there is a massive element of sacrifice to get to where you're going. And then as long as you're putting in the work and you're surrounding yourself with the right people, and you have an agreed common objective and a process to work to those, and you're consistent, you'll get there. You will, and we've got some great examples.
Definitely. So speaking of those great examples, I'm sure when you're deciding which clients to work with, one of the things you would consider is obviously the attitude and their approach to work and their career. So talk us through your roster at the moment. Like I said, you're probably quite busy. You've had some incredible, and I'm sure they're still on your roster, Graeme Sharp, the Dakar Rally, also the national women's field hockey teams. And also we spoke to Scott Vincent last week and he mentioned you as well. So your roster is looking really, really good.
Yeah, it's exciting, and I've always said in this industry, it's very important you don't sort of box yourself in. Yes, you want to be able to have a very unique way of doing things that you have the ability to specialize, whether it's with a specific athlete or a specific sport. But to grow that knowledge, you've got to experience everything. So I very much open my doors to young development athletes all the way through to Olympic level professionals, irrespective of the sport, as long as I feel that I can positively engage with them and then look at ways of being able to support and assist and develop them, then I say yes. So, from enduros and rallies to golfers, to field hockey, to rugby, to swimmers, to rowers, the foundation of strength and conditioning is pretty much the same. It just becomes the detail and the understanding of the sport and the demands of the sport, and then suiting those needs based on the level of athlete and where they're going on their competition journey as well.
So you just working with people, and I'm sure working with whether it's full-on teams or individuals, it can be quite challenging. Obviously, because people have different personalities, they have different approaches to work and all of that. What would you say is one of the most difficult aspects of working with some athletes and some teams?
I think the challenge I've experienced is convincing them to commit. It's that physical commitment. I'm present, I'm here, I'm actually standing in the training paddock, I'm ready to work. And then it's that emotional commitment as well. It's I'm invested, I'm buying into this process, I'm immersed, I'm ready to do the work that's required. Too often athletes locally have succeeded or tasted a level of success with only operating in their program at about 60 to 70% if. And they're okay with that, so when you do get an athlete that really immerses themselves into a program, you see the rewards. And I can sort of give you an example. Mikeen Thornycroft, our Olympic rower from London 2012 and Rio 2016, great example. Graeme Sharp, Dakar, great example. Scott Vincent, Zim's #1 ranked golfer, great example. And it's lovely to be able to work with these athletes they're fully committed. They have great coachability, they buy in, they ask the right questions, they pitch up, they show up, and they're ready to work.
So talking about athletes who are ready to work, a lot of athletes in this country specifically haven't had the opportunity to even kick a ball this year. Take a look at our football, for example. And now we're hearing that they're going to have 4 weeks to prepare for a return to football. Now, from your perspective as a professional, is a 4-week period enough?
I think it depends on a number of things. So, for example, if you just sat on your backside during lockdown as a professional athlete, I think you should have your contract renegotiated because, fitness is free. And during lockdown, we did have the freedom of space, and we were given an opportunity to get out on the road and at least do something and go running. Maybe the gyms were closed, but every single athlete has their own body weight and positive attitude to get going. So there wasn't really an excuse to shut things off, except for those who needed a recovery with regards to injuries. It depends again which sport you're in. So take a sport like football, non-contact, non-collision based, a lot of running. So the return to play would be a lot shorter than, for example, rugby. So rugby, you're looking at, if you haven't made contact or been in a collision based space training for up to 6 weeks, you're probably looking at an entire off season to prepare yourself again.
Wow.
Football would be a lot less, but you would have to revisit the energy systems, and you would have to redevise the training programs for small-sided games, and then slowly over that 4 to 5 week period, increase the volume, increase the mileage they run. But I think the worst thing any system can do right now is to put their athletes straight back into a heavy competitive training space and potentially put them at risk by going straight into a competition.
So we've talked locally, but internationally, we've been seeing quite a few injuries. For example, in the English Premier League, a number of players injured, Virgil van Dijk out possibly until next season. Can we attribute that to the COVID lockdown and obviously that return to sport? And when they returned, there wasn't necessarily much of a pre-season. There was also the Champions League that was being played, and they've come back now. Is that all issues to do with load management and just how COVID has messed up 2020?
Yeah, sure. It can certainly lend the negative side to it. As a strength and conditioning coach, one of the most exciting things is to get these on your athletes. It's to work hands-on, to be face-to-face with your athletes in the gym, on the field. That's where you get that feedback. So for a lot of these athletes that were at home and your S&C coach could only, send a WhatsApp, have a Skype chat or a Zoom call with athletes, you don't really get your hands on them, and you don't get that first-hand look, see, and feel as to how they're working and what they're doing. Plus, it's a trust thing. It's like, there's the program, get on and do it. Let's touch base on a week, at the end of the week. Are you doing your work? Yes, coach.
And it's not happening.
Yes, coach. So, those were challenges that were experienced. Not to say that was not the answer to the injuries. It could also just be that they weren't in their regular training space, being able to do high intensity explosive based work that they would be accustomed to if they were in their normal training system.
So taking a look at the entire industry in Zim, what improvements would you like to see in terms of, say, for example, from a policy level, from just the athletes themselves, and obviously from us, the media?
Sure, that's a deep question. So for me, there is a money aspect to it, and I say this because let's take LeBron James for example. Not a lot of people know, one of the greatest basketball players and athletes, ever to grace the face of the earth and currently performing. He spends his own money, $1.5 million on physical preparation for himself. So
That's
nutrition
incredible.
Experts, strength and conditioning experts, gym equipment, physios, recoveries, everything. That's what he spends on himself, because he understands that if his body and mind are not performing, he's not earning an income and he's not performing for his team. So that's a mindset. That is the decision to intrinsically take, to say, this is my goal, this is how I need to get there, and this is what I have to do in order to achieve it. Money is going to lend a hand in the instance of a lot of teams and associations want professional help, but they want it for free. So if you're getting it for free, are you getting it to the value you would if you were paying for it?
Yeah,
Too often a lot of associations and teams expect it for free because we're Zimbabwe. So, if you're not paying for it, are you accountable to the professional effort that's being put in? And the answer often is no. We don't see that return. So if you're doing pro bono work, you often see an athlete or a coaching system go up, well, it's for free, he's doing this for free. So, it's not that important. But if you were paying out your pocket, you would want to maximize that return on investment. So again, it's not necessarily a money thing. It's a mindset of those in charge of making those decisions to say, we need the professional resource, we need the professional help. Is there a cost element to it? Okay, go and get it. And then there are terms and conditions, then there are KPIs, then there are focus areas, etc. And there's an accountability on both sides of the equation, and that makes a much more professional environment. And then obviously from the association and administrators' perspective is to place a greater emphasis in physical development from a young age, so that it's appropriate the whole way through the athlete's transition from junior to senior, into national age grade, and then into the national setup. So by the time they reach the national programs, they are physically capable of performing at that level and what is required of them. Plus their risk of injury is significantly reduced. And they have a clear understanding of how to train and what's required.
So we should definitely have the Ministry of Sport give you a call when they're designing their programs, just to get a professional on board as well, to make sure that we do have proper pipelines for our athletes, and we're not just pushing out, half-baked athletes in the hope that they'll eventually turn pro. So what does the rest of the year look like for you in terms of some of the athletes that you're working with, some of the teams that you're working with as well?
Well, at the moment, Scott Vincent is on the European tour, so he plays in Italy today. So today is day one. I think he'll be, I don't know what the time difference there is, about an hour, I think. So he'll be teeing off in 35 minutes. And then I'm currently working with a local football club as well, Golden Eagles, and then with the hockey side. So that at the moment is very much strength and conditioning as well. So that's the National Women's Hockey indoor and field, and then the under 18s and under 21s. So it's nice to see multiple age groups with a competitive schedule for early next year, starting to prep for it. Rugby obviously has taken a back seat, being a contact-based sport, but the SRC, I think, and their medical department is going to go and visit and inspect facilities to make sure that they are compliant so that they can get back. Whether or not rugby will take place this year is probably slim to none, just because the season has pretty much come to an end and time available is, very, very short. It would be in that sport's best interest just to go, get stuck into these players physically and get them bigger, stronger for next year, because we have, 2 months in which to do that before January kicks off.
So what do you think are some of the gains that we can make as a country if we actually make this investment into professionalizing almost our sport? Take, for example, you were mentioning the fact that some athletes only almost half do it because they're not getting paid to do it. So once we make that investment as a country, even at just a policy level, what do you think we can benefit as a country?
Look, we got great talent, and that talent is, it needs to be surrounded by the right people, guiding it in the right way, whether that's administrators, coaches, the medical side of it, the nutritional, the mental health side of it. I'll take my Keen Thornycroft as an example. She was surrounded by a coach, a medical doctor, a physiotherapist, a strength and conditioning coach, a mental coach, and then the medical side. So there were basically 5 support staff around her, and that's for one athlete. So it would be very important for these athletes to be surrounded and guided by the right people. It would be very important for them to be given access to the right tools as well, so that it wouldn't be a case of a national squad or a national athlete not being afforded the best possible opportunity to prepare, and then going and flying the flag under competitive instances and not getting the results the public is kind of hoping or wanting. It's a tough one, because it's not going to happen overnight. A lot of these problems are not a fly-by-night fix. They are certainly seasons long worth of investment. It's years long worth of restructuring, trying, seeing how long it plays out in order for it to work or not work. So there's a massive element of patience involved in this. And too often we look at systems around the world that are currently working and working well, and we go, that's how they're doing it. But some of those took 15, 20 years to get there.
Okay, so obviously today's a shorter show, we've run out of time, but is there anything you'd just like to mention, anything you'd like Zimbabwean athletes to know?
Yeah, I think, for the general public out there, a lot of them don't realize how hard some of these athletes work, and that whenever an athlete, pulls that jersey on or sticks the badge, the flag on their shoulders, they're going out there to represent. They never go out there with the intention of doing badly, losing, making mistakes. So it would be nice to see our public really be positive towards athletes. Social media can be a very damning tool, and support the guys, support them, give them the support, and when those opportunities are there to be professional, then there's accountability, and then the comments can be made, because you're getting paid to do it and you're training right, and that's professional sport.
So Grant, one last question for people like myself who absolutely had a time during the lockdown and gained a lot of weight. Just a couple of tips. How do we shed this weight and get fit again?
Don't open the fridge so often. Run one more loop around your neighborhood than you normally would. And squats and push-ups. Done.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Z.
If you are going to be a top athlete, what do you need? Dedication, commitment, and you need the buy-in. If you are going to be one of the best athletes this country's ever seen, first of all, you want to work with Grant Mitchel, but also you need to be willing to make those sacrifices he was talking about. Sacrifices in terms of time, sacrifices in terms of putting in the effort and mentally being there for all of your training, for everything that you need to do. The coach can only do so much for you. You as an athlete absolutely need to be able to put everything on the line to become the absolute best. And of course, if you're a regular citizen like myself, how do you lose that COVID weight? Number one tip, close the fridge.
Hi, my name's Ryan Kens, Sunshine Tour professional golfer, and you're listening to ZiFM Sport.